Hi, welcome. In this video, I want to take a few minutes to respond by way of a balanced dog trainer. And this video just popped up on my Facebook social media feed. And I want to respond to it by way of how those who identify as balanced dog trainers see, okay, or respond to the confusion that's happening in the dog training world by way of those who identify as force free. And specifically on this video, is going to be talking about Zach George. But I found the some of the verbiage here to be very interesting. I'm going to stop and talk about it to fill in some gaps here in terms of what the source of the problem is, and even as it relates to those who identify as balanced dog trainers not being able, okay, to push back, okay, guys like Zach George not being able to, respond coherently and clearly to, those who identify as force free. The reason why there's issues related to remote collar bans and just all the controversies. Again, I go through it through my Flipping the Script series, um, making the connections, connecting the dots by way of showing that all these controversies that have popped up over the months and years by way of those who identify as balanced dog training are no random accidents or coincidences. Okay, and I go right from Jeff Gellman, the bonker situation, right on through trainers getting blindsided, and on it goes. And so here, I'm going to play some of this again. I don't know who this trainer is from Canine Services Unlimited. This is a public post, so I want to respond to this because here he's trying to, come up against Zach George. But again, I want to talk about the reason why balanced dog trainers they cannot provide clarity as to what the real issue is.
Christmas Day, bro. Like the fucking gifts just keep flowing. Like if you know me, like I'm not letting this shit go. And the reason why I make this video, I made the one last night, made the one today, is because this dude has been the mouthpiece of the force-free fake community for who knows how long. He's probably got the biggest following, the biggest mouth, and he's now the biggest fraud, right?
So again, right there, I'll stop it quickly. So I talk about how popularity, even amongst those who identify as balanced dog trainers, popularity is all twisted up, okay, in this idea by way of approaching training as a learning-based exercise, okay, what that represents in terms of what represents a process when a dog owner who's experiencing a relationship problem is stepping into this idea that training is a learning-based exercise by way of how they're engaging, okay, and again, I put out this question to balanced dog trainers and force-free trainers in relation to actually, the question is what's the criteria these trainers are using to establish that the perception of dogs are actually changing the right way within the framework of superficial responses. Okay, and again, that really gets to the heart of this issue. Okay, when you see just how common it's for dogs to be moving around, responding for treats and for motivating agents, but coming on the other side, dog owners are still experiencing a relationship problem. I talk about that, and that's that aligns with balanced dog trainers as well. And so here he's talking about again, start use that word fake. Zach George is fake. But the question is, okay, a lot of trainers out there are using certain language to try to label, but let's get into the specifics. Why is he fake? Let's play some more of this.
As balanced trainers, we get constantly attacked by this fake propaganda bullshit. And if you're in this world, you know that it's complete bullshit, but this is the absolute fraud exposure, and it's just absolutely fantastic. So we're going to leverage this moment for not only, to make awareness to this whole fake shit, but this is not going to stop. Like, these idiots are not going to stop with their bullshit, and all it is to create a niche of never getting results, bro. It's absolute money.
I talk about, results, okay? What does that even mean? Okay, by way of balanced and force free. You start to understand, what their focus is on, okay, in a very superficial way, at a response level. Again, that same question, what's the criteria they're using? How are they establishing that the perceptions are changing the right way with dogs and at what level? Again, that aligns with diminishment of unwanted behavioral issues by way of perception of dogs change in the right way towards the owner. I talk about the social aspect of the relationship. And so the same question not can be asked not just by way of force free, but balanced as well. I put the same question because understand that this is the confusion. We talk about, and right here at the bottom, he talks about, 4 quadrants. I talk about this in terms of, bringing influence, okay, into a superficial process. It can't be reconciled. It does not, come in terms of its role itself, in terms of being proactive. There's certain themes I talk about with engaging the relationship by way of a dog's stinking thinking. Okay, I talk about intercepting, okay, dog's state of mind as by way of an expressed state. So very specific as to its role. But we see through balanced dog training, there's confusion there because number one is they're not aligned with a intentional interaction-based method. Okay, that versus what they're doing here is they're superficially motivating dogs. I talk about the motivators, the relationship. Again, there's a reason why I don't motivate dogs the same way because that sets up a problem. Okay, by way again of what the focus is on in terms of defining a standard. That's why these trainers, dogs are moving around, they're rewarding dogs in certain moments where they're assuming that the sit down, come and stay represents that perception of changing. That's totally inherently flawed, okay, based on its application. I talk about that. But this whole thing about balanced dog trainers and what they've done is they've built off of this flawed idea. They've added the 2 quadrants, they brought in the negative, but that doesn't override the problem, okay, based on, this idea how dogs are being, how dogs are being motivated to respond, the way that they're doing this within the framework of response. I get into this, but you have to apply some critical thinking here. But, the starting point should be, for a lot of these trainers is why are so many dog owners experiencing a lack of results, okay? Why are dog owners failing even while using the exact same approach, exact same devices? These are all the things that are happening. But you don't see, dog trainers actually doing a proper audit to step back and ask questions. They want to come up against guys like Zach George. But then the question is, well, why is it these trainers are actually confronting the real issue so that, the real issue can be addressed? That's not happening.
Grab. Like this dude's made a little space for himself. And if you think about the psychology of it, like. So
I love that. And again, when I heard this, it was like the dude's made a little space for himself. But I talk about this, like the only reason Zach George has been able to make a space for himself is because balanced dog trainers are compromised, okay? They're in agreement with the same idea things. They're jumping in the same way. So that space that's been created for guys like Zach George, balanced dog trainers have actually created that space. Okay, understand they're married to the exact same idea of things. This is why they can't push this back. This is why they're taking heat, but it's heat that they've created. Okay, understand that, because how can you call out something that you're in agreement with? You can't. This is why, again, when you go watch my videos, I call out the real issue. I don't identify as a balanced trainer, as a force-free trainer. I identify with the truth, okay, as to what defines a process.
He can never be tested on his work because there's no results expected, right? Because there's no.
So same thing here, he's able to be tested on his work. But what does that even mean within the framework of superficial responses? See, that's the thing. I show what's the criteria to actually put the pitcher to the test. Well, it's influence and control by way of an intentional, interaction-based method that speaks the right language, okay, that reveals and changes. But balanced dog trainers, okay, that criteria is missing, okay, the way that it's reconciled through a interaction-based approach. It's not brought in the way I described. So, their criteria is the same thing, superficial. Understand that they've bought into this lie that training's a learning-based exercise when a relationship problem is underway. It doesn't even make sense.
Never any pressure applied to the animal. So
notice the language here, pressure. No pressure applied. That's just that. And again, understand you hear superficial language that doesn't define, okay, terms properly. I talk about intentional control and influence, even defining the role of influence by way of intercepting an expressed state. Okay, the stinking thinking part of it. Understand, balanced dog trainers are not dialed in that way at all. So they'll use it certain terms, but the terms themselves they use like pressure. Terms align with this superficial idea of things. It's like it's general. Because people have to ask questions. Okay, you say pressure. What does that even mean? pressure. This is why when balanced dog trainers look at what I do, it's interesting. They'll label me as a force trainer, same type of thing, because they don't understand what's really happening in terms of, I talk about being dialed in to the relationship dog state of mind. They're looking through a very superficial lens, but they can't push the stuff back at the same time.
Let's walk through this, right? So
he's not allowed to get that. Leave it. No. Look at me. Yes.
He's got this dog here, has a ball out in front. Yep. Again, pit bull, dog with probably scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 5 for drive, maybe a 4, like nothing over the top. Throws the ball out in front. Dog maintains a sit. Good job there. But then he steps in front of the dog, right, to block its vision. Right, so the dog, he annoys the dog, gives it several commands. The dog.
To talk about annoying the dog. So here it's this whole thing with saying, well, Zach George, and this is what you see, is like a hypocrite, for, doing certain things that bring a dog under a level of control. But understand, again, superficial. It doesn't actually define, okay, what a process is. And understand, this is what you get in the dog training world. You get this type of thing of trying to kind of sort of call them out. But it's superficial because the calling out part isn't about depth. Okay, it's not about being very specific as to, okay, what is a process, what's the role? Because here's the thing: when I say a training's not a learning-based exercise, guess what? Balanced dog trainers, they come up against me too. Well, then if you consider that both these groups are aligned, they're married to the exact same idea. Well, no wonder they can't call out the real issue. Because here's the thing: someone's going to be right and someone's going to be wrong. But what I show is both these groups are wrong. Okay, this is how massive the problem is in the dog training world.
Ends up looking at him. Nice job. Good job there on the eye contact.
See, good job in eye contact, right? See, it's so superficial. I talk about this. What's the context of focus? Just like, is it perceptions changing the right way? Just like, again, this whole thing about the parenting style, permissive versus authoritative. But in terms of what's generated, what's the context of focus? See, these are the things that, what underpin, okay, certain relational dynamics, certain interplays. You don't see that. Just say, I was looking at Zach George, good job. Well, no. I mean, you have to establish that. That's the thing about the jumping in point. Understand that balanced dog trainers, they jump in the same way as force-free trainers with how they're motivating dogs at the very beginning, the way they're doing it. I'm jumping in, okay, and I'm, again, control and influence are being reconciled by way of interaction-based method, okay? The relationship's the motivator, but I'm not motivating dogs to respond this way because I understand the issues, okay? When you do that, if that's your focus and if that's what your criteria is, well, guess what? It's wrong, okay? You're setting people up to be deceived.
He marks. It looks like he tries to give the dog food, and the dog immediately on that marker, because probably what's happened, he doesn't understand markers, doesn't understand duration, terminal.
So you talk about markers, duration. I mean, that's ridiculous, okay? What are you marking? Okay, understand that your whole basis of a foundation here is superficial response. This is why trainers will even use that word behavior. They're basically hijacking it. They're bringing it into this framework of superficial response. I've mentioned this before, and the word behavior is misapplied. It doesn't belong in there. Okay, these are just superficial responses because they're engaging relationship problem. In terms of just getting a dog to respond. So it's all assumption based, totally inherently flawed. But he's talking about, so here the trainers talk about marking. But again, what are you marking? Just like I say, when you're petting a dog, you're assuming something. You're assuming that that moment is good. But again, my question is, well, based on what? What's the criteria to establish that moment's good or that the perceptions are changing? Well, if you walk this back to the beginning, and those two core ingredients, influence and control, not reconciled properly by way of taking the path of an intervention and a power play, I talk about power play, then, your basis for assuming that is inherently flawed because the criteria to establish that isn't there. So again, all to say that very interesting verbiage here when this trainer talks about he's created a space for himself. Well, that was created through balanced dog trainers. Okay, understand that they're in the same space. And so this is why you see this thing going on in the dog training world. It's like balanced dog trainers, they're upset over Zach George, but they can't push this back. because they're aligned with the exact same inherently flawed idea of what a process is. Thanks for watching.